morning, Los Angeles. Good morning, Defenders, and good morning to all that are part of the Black and Gold Brigade worldwide, from LA to Seoul to London to Taiwan to wherever you are, to Holland, obviously, and LAFC and Dave Gomez. Much love. Welcome. I see Ben in the chat. Good morning, William. Good morning, Ruben. Ben, I saw you on TV for the Angel City game, by the way. What a game that was. This is episode 377 of Defenders of the Bank. My name is Christian Filliman, better known as Philly, and I'm still flying solo today as Scarf and Lafferty are chilling in Chi-Town. I know I'm a little late. Normally these shows would go on at 9 or 9:30 in the morning when it's Scarf and I, but I'm going to sleep in a little, Defenders, because Philly is a night owl, whereas Scarf is an early bird. In reality, if we're talking about poultry and stuff like that, I'm more or less a permanently pooped pigeon as opposed to anything else. But either way, the show must go on, and it will. We're going to talk about the debut of LAFC's newest signing, Heung-Min's son, known to us all now as Sonny, and we're all going to discuss LAFC's performance against the Chicago Fire. I can't give you a this day in LAFC history, as that's part of the Scarf Committee. And speaking of Scarf, he's over in Milwaukee right now at Miller Park, about to catch the Brewers take on the Mets. Fingers crossed for him, Defenders, because this could be a moment of history that he bears witness to. And by that, I mean if the polar bear, Pete Alonso, manages to hit a home run, he will surpass Darryl Strawberry as the all-time leading home run hitter in New York Mets history. And that would be a pretty cool thing for Scarf to catch during his travels in Milwaukee. As per Alice Cooper in the movie Wayne's World, it means the good land. All right, let's get into it. No real time to BS and banter you. Let's get to it. LAFC, defeated. No, that's not true. LAFC's never won a game against the Chicago Fire. They've drawn and they've tied. This is only the third time that they're taking on the Chicago Fire. And this time it's going to be in the Windy City for the first time since a 0-0 draw dating back to Los Angeles in 2019. Now, LAFC comes into this game with a 10-6-6 record over its first 22 matches. Of course, we got games on hand due to all the international competitions that we've played on. I summed this up during One More Sleep. LAFC over the course of 22 matches has the same exact record that they did in 2023, a season in which they made it to the MLS Cup final and obviously won the Western Conference. And 2018, they also had the same record after 22 matches in their inaugural season. 36 points. They would manage to add one more point on that at the conclusion of this game. But of course, we're going to talk about that later. I see everybody in the chat's got stuff to say. Certainly appreciate it. Ruben Rio. So here's this day in LAFC history. Let's read it. August 10th marks a memorable moment. Yes, for right now, you're 100% right. This is a new one. You're absolutely right, Ruben. Certainly appreciate you being in the chat today. All right. So the game, SeatGeek Stadium is the venue. Why? Because Soldier Field, the site of a Chicago Bears preseason game. And if there's anything that we know in the United States of America, is that the NFL is the top dog when it comes to pro sports leagues in the U.S. Honestly, if not, period. There's a really good book called The Club. If you happen to get your hands on it, it's really interesting. It's about the formation of the Premier League and how a lot of the top execs at clubs such as Arsenal, etc., shadowed NFL executives to come up with the ideas of how to market, promote, and do things within England. And obviously, at this point, the EPL is a juggernaut when it comes to global football on a financial scale. It's changed, much to the chagrin of a lot of people who loved the more intimate nature of it, calling, more games in the English Championship proper football. But the NFL, those ideas filtered on down to what you see now in England. And so hence there you have it. The book's called The Club. It's a really, really good one. All right. So Chicago starting out in a 4-3-3, utilizing Chris Brady as their keeper. Goodman, Tehran, Jack Elliott. There's a name many of y'all are familiar with. And Burrows, so make up the back line. Origo Gutierrez, who's been pretty good this season, in Davila. Up top, Bamba Kuipers and Zinkernagel, and we would hear that name from the Dane a couple of times. Now, LAFC, depending on where you were looking at as far as their formation goes, the broadcast said 4-3-3. MLS.com said 3-5-2. If you use anything else, I'm sure it was different. What we would have for certain, though, is Hugo Lloris starting in between the sticks. Nkosi Tafari, Eddie Segura, Sergi Palencia. Then you would have Ryan Hollingshead, Marky Delgado, Timothy Tillman, Igor Jesus, Matthew Chenier getting the start today, rocking the number 66. First LAFC player since Bradley Wright Phillips did do so. Up top, you would have Nathan Ordaz and David Martinez. Son on the bench, Denis on the bench. I'm going to talk a bit about that in the second half. Ruben Rios in the chat asks, Philly, who is your NFL team? Being from New York, I grew up a Jets fan. But since moving out to California, my wife being a hardcore Rams fan and us having Rams season tickets, and if you Google Amanda Filimon, Filimon, you'll see that in 2021, she was actually the NFL Rams Fan of the Year. It was a contest sponsored by Captain Morgan in which yours truly wrote the greatest essay of his life. May he rest in peace, but my English teacher in high school, Mr. McDonald, didn't seem to like my writing too much. But lucky enough for me that Captain Morgan and the NFL did, because Amanda was the fan of the year, and we got to go to the Super Bowl for the Rams, by the way. We got to go to the Super Bowl the year in which the Rams defeated the Bengals. Pretty cool stuff. Now on the broadcast, we would hear a familiar voice, our very own Max Bretos on the call with Brian Dunseth. Max getting to be on the call for the debut of Son. Pretty freaking cool. Q Cardi, you finally made it live. Good morning to you as well. We don't normally start these pods this late, but since it's just me, I decided to sleep in a little bit. So prior to the game starting, the win probability stated as per MLS was that 40.2% probability for the Fire to win this game, 33% for LAFC, and 26.8% would have been a probability for a tie. You could audibly hear me say horse pucky in some very profane words on a video clip that I had while I was recording this, but because of the fact that we are a family-friendly broadcast, I am not here to swear. Camping Carjo EN, new to MLS, here for Sonny. Certainly appreciate you being here. MLS is an interesting league, to say the least. It's got a lot of intricacies that are very foreign to people who follow the game on a global scale. A lot of funny acronyms like TAM and GAM and discovery rights, but it is a fun little league to pay attention to. And if Sonny is your reason for doing it, I applaud that. Welcome to MLS. All right, so we get into it. It's nice to see that the Fire fans are out in full force. I say that jokingly initially because you saw a lot of dark blue in the stands, which was the seat colors of SeatGeek Stadium. But as the game started progressing and moving on, you could see that people started filtering in to SeatGeek Stadium. Now, this isn't a facility that's within downtown Chicago. It's on the outskirts. Normally, the Fire do play in downtown Chicago in Soldier Field. But in this case, as I mentioned, preseason NFL pushed them out to SeatGeek Stadium. SeatGeek Stadium also happens to be the home of Chicago Fire 2 and the NWSL's Chicago Red Stars. And I know that the Fire are good. They spend a boatload of money on a training facility, one in which Manchester United utilized and praised. But considering that they haven't upgraded their amenities in forever, what do they know about nice facilities? The Fire, though, are going to be implementing a great deal of money. Their owner, who bought into the club, is a big fan, and you're going to see them with a pretty good state-of-the-art field down the road. And speaking of the man who made his debut, he's in the chat. Hello, greetings. Good morning. All right, so getting into things, Max did say on the broadcast that Chenier was mentioned by Steve to have adapted quickly to LAFC's style, and utilizing him as a plug-and-play player has been to his benefit. So he gets the start, which is a cool thing. I mentioned in one more sleep that LAFC does have some ties to the Chicago Fire. Ante Razov being one of their all-time leading scorers, and one of the top 10 in MLS. Not to mention he was there during the time that the Chicago Fire had their heyday when they won an MLS Cup and when they ended up winning U.S. Open Cup. He was a stud there. But we also had Kellen Acosta over there with an LAFC tie. You'd get to see Kellen in the 88th minute. So first 10 or so minutes of the game, not too much transpired. In the 9th minute, the Fire did manage to pick through LAFC cleanly, but nothing to show for it. That's about the time that we saw the first attack from either side. One thing that I caught of note during the broadcast is Max Bretos mentioned that LAFC's had no goals against them via the counterattack, which is incredible. But an area that the Chicago Fire thrive in is set pieces. Deadly on the corner. Number 1 in Major League Soccer with 8 goals on the season. And in the 11th minute, they would find their way at their 9th. I know we're a podcast that needs to be suitable for work and all that other stuff. I'm going to give you a bad word in German. The defense for LAFC in this case was set piece Scheisse. There's an alliteration for you. As Carlos Terán, the defender, wearing the number 4, had a beautiful header, but equally as beautiful was the corner kick take by Zinkernagel. This guy is a top player when it comes to set pieces. Most of his assists happen to come from these set pieces, as do a lot of goals from the Chicago Fire, a team that scored over 40 over the course of the MLS regular season. They don't struggle when it comes to scoring goals. They struggle when it comes to defending. Terán gets past LAFC defender Igor Jesus, a nice header, his first of the season, and Zinkernagel's 11th of the season. It's funny. Anytime I'd hear the term Zinkernagel, Panda would just start to giggle. And I can't exactly tell you what she thought of, but the Dane with the dime. So, boom, LAFC on the ropes initially. LAFC is not a very good team on the road this season. Coming into SeatGeek Stadium this weekend, only 2 wins. But equally as interesting is that the Chicago Fire are a much better team on the road than they are at home. As tough as it is to win in this league on the road, it's amazing that the home team struggles when they play in front of their home crowd. Ruben Rios in the chat goes, your brother was calling him Snickerdoodle. That is hilarious. Question in, is there no last man rule in MLS? There is more on that later. As far as the game itself goes, look, a lot of the rules in MLS don't really, they don't alter. They're not different from what you see in the rest of the world. It's just the front office shenanigans and the front office business that greatly have disparaged. They're just crazy. Look up the term discovery rights and tell me if you can figure that out, because I've been watching this league for a long time, and for me, discovery rights in this league is no different than some teams saying, I got dibs. It's pretty wild. Son in the chat goes, Philly, can you tell Dolo I'm not a bench player? $25 million. Well, yeah, you're right. $25 million did pay for it. He came in. Right? What a week he had. And I'll talk more about that later. But within a week, his life is completely changed. And by that, I mean of Heung-Min's son. All right, so LAFC down 1-0. We know their record isn't the greatest when having conceded first. Now, LAFC starts to make some runs in. Let's move on over to the 15th minute. I'm not going to really do a lot of the minute-by-minute, play-by-play, all that other stuff. But I do want to highlight the moments that really stood out to me. It's just me today. I don't have things to pick apart with Scarf or Lafferty. So I'm going to go based on what I think is important. 15th minute, right? 15th minute, Ordaz gets gifted an incredible opportunity off of a misjudged slide by the Chicago Fire's goal scorer in Terán. David Martinez with the feed. Ordaz is off on the run. Barroso trying like hell to catch up to him. The pressure he added certainly affected Nate's ability to fire on frame. He did fire on frame, but right into the capable hands of Chris Brady. Kick save by Brady on the run. And that obviously sets up a set piece opportunity for LAFC. I talked on One More Sleep about how having possession for LAFC would be the key in pressuring the ball on both sides of the pitch. It was great defense, great run for LAFC. And at the end, they would have more even possession with the Fire at halftime. But, I mean, the pass in from David Martinez looked pretty stellar. So we move on to the 19th or so minute. Now, off of a set piece, yet again, we got Ryan Hollingshead, David Martinez with the take. Ryan Hollingshead with the Hollings header. And we didn't know right off the bat whether or not that was a goal, but the assistant referee indicated that it was. Hugo Kuipers of the Chicago Fire, credit to him, was there to head it out. but they went to see if there was something reviewable, check complete, good to go. There were moments of confusion, and you'd think in a league that is really trying to catch up with, I don't know, the top 15, that they could at least mandate goal line technology. We didn't have an overhead. We didn't see any of it. So we had to rely on the assistant referee for whether or not that was a clear and obvious goal. And clear and obvious, certainly it was. 1-1 is the score. That brings us into halftime. A couple of other shenanigans and things happen, but we're not going to necessarily go into it. 1-1 at halftime. Okay, LAFC haven't played on their back heels. No big deal for now. All right, let's go to the chat real quick to see what the deal is. Speaking of Martinez, Q Cardi, thoughts on the sideline ref attempting to push Martinez and his reaction to it. I'll address that in just a moment. That could be said on a couple of occasions. Or you can see a couple of thoughts when it comes into that. So halftime stats, both teams very even with a lot of statistics. Both with 3 shots. LAFC would have one more on target. LAFC would have the lion's share of possessions, but of course, Chicago Fire on their one would score, which is something they've been deadly on all season long. Passing accuracy from both sides, pretty good, up in the upper 80s with LAFC close to 90. Now, the start of the second half brings on Denny Bouanga. Now, a lot of you have expressed your concerns thinking that, hey, he didn't start the last game. He's not the kind of player to not come in. Is he sold? Is he being sold? Well, I can tell you, have no fear, defenders. I know the big concern was him going down to Liga MX to play for Club America, but Las Águilas aren't poaching any of our players anytime soon. He got to play in the second half. He would end up finding the back of the net. And oh, by the way, if you want to meet Denny Bouanga, I'm going to throw this right up on the screen here. He's going to be at Stater Brothers in Pasadena, 1390 North Allen Avenue on Wednesday, August the 13th, which happens to be my birthday, by the way, defenders, from the hours of 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. So if there's any fear of Denny leaving, don't worry about it, y'all. He is not going anywhere. We are going to have him. So go to Stater Brothers if you want the opportunity to meet the man who possibly this season, more than likely this season, will become the all-time leading scorer in LAFC history. Stater Brothers is an incredible supermarket, Mr. Son Heung-Min. So he's your teammate. If you want to follow him along, chaperone him. I wouldn't do that. You would probably overshadow. No, you would definitely overshadow Denny. So I wouldn't do that. All right. So we get into the second half. In the 58th moment, we had a really threatening moment during the run of play for LAFC. An excellent pass to Timothy Tillman. What a beauty from Nathan Ordaz. He clears some space by attracting Jack Elliott to his side, leaving Timmy wide open on the right. Uncontested. No one around him, but Chris Brady denies him. Timothy Tillman still looking for a goal this season. Struggling on the offensive side, finding the back of the net, has contributed, though, to the success of his teammates. Now, in the 61st minute, we're all going to ask ourselves at some point in our lives, where were you for the debut of Son? Son Heung-Min in for David Martinez. Interesting. Could this tie back to what Q Cardi said? The encounter that Martinez had with the official over on the opposite end of the pitch. I don't know. At one point, he was frustrated. The official was trying to talk to him, tried to get his hand on him. Martinez tried to swat it away. He's lucky he didn't get a yellow card there. Martinez has shown signs of immaturity. 19, not going to completely fault him. But could that have been the reason why that he was pulled out? No, I don't think so. I just think Nathan Ordaz was playing a much better game. But either way, there is the debut. And what a week. Son, what a week. I don't have the answer. He says in the chat, what are the best restaurants in Koreatown? The answer to you is there are so many of them. So many of them. Absolutely so many of them in K-Town. In the chat, I'm going to call you camping just so I could save some of my vocal cords. Happy to catch you live. Time zone is so different. Tell me about it. Living in Los Angeles, needing to wake up for games in England at 4:30 in the morning, that sucks too. So now we're all in the same boat. But when you love this sport, time doesn't wait. And that's okay because we don't wait for time. Stole that line from a Jack Johnson, a certain singer-songwriter that is from Hawaii and attended the University of California at Santa Barbara. But I digress. Sonny, last Sunday, was in South Korea wearing a Tottenham kit. On Wednesday, he gets unveiled as a member of LAFC at BMO Stadium. And now, in Chicago, wearing LAFC's white, collared, and gold kit, he makes his debut. What a wild, wild week for him, man. Just so crazy. Now, there's been a debate, and I've had this conversation with a few of you now via DMs. There's been a debate and question as to why everybody's starting to refer to him as Sonny, as most of the broadcasters, in fact, all of the broadcasters in England would only refer to him as Son or Heung-Min's son or some variation of that. Well, it isn't because this was made up for MLS. See for yourself why we are all starting to call him that.
Is Son Heung-Min, but everybody call me Sonny.
All right, well, that's what he wants, and that's what he's going to get. That's what we're going to call him on the broadcast. That's what we were calling him during the press conference. In fact, that's how I addressed him when I got to ask him a question, my very own, on this past Wednesday. So he makes his debut in for David Martinez. And I'm pretty sure, based on the way everything looked, not a big body of work, but up top, you'd have Denny on the left. You'd have Son in the middle and Nathan Ordaz on the right. I think that's pretty formidable, pretty darn formidable when it comes to your forwards. So the story is just that. Now, when he makes his debut, you can hear an audible cheer from the crowd at SeatGeek Stadium. There was a very healthy LAFC contingent there, but of course, there were a lot of people there to see Sonny's debut. And during his post-game interview, he mentioned that he's not used to fans at opposing stadiums cheering his name when it gets called on the PA. But I'm sure that you are going to see this time and time again. I was watching some highlights of fans over at Tottenham talking about their love for Sonny, and I saw a dude wearing a Sonaldo kit. I thought that was kind of fun. Respect on that one. I appreciate the creativity. All right, so one thing that happened in the 62nd minute, Zinkernagel makes an oopsie-poopsie foul on Marky Delgado. Yellow card. That's not a big story, but I just wanted to say oopsie-poopsie just the one time. Now, Chicago up to this point had a couple of really nice chances in the first 20 minutes of the second half, but off the mark. Now, moving in 67th minute, Ordaz to Son found himself some space, didn't get enough boot to it as Brady easily makes the play, but there were a couple of occasions in which Ordaz linked up very well with Sonny. Palencia linked up pretty well with him. A little bit of confusion from time to time between him and Denny over on that left side, but that's something that's going to get squashed. But that was like a nice attempt. Now, he makes his debut, and the Chicago Fire looking to spoil it because they make it 2-1 in the 70th minute, carving up LAFC's defense like a Thanksgiving turkey. Zinkernagel gets hit with a very nice pass from Gutierrez, who's a very good facilitator for the Chicago Fire. With three defenders in the box, he attracts that. He leaves it off to Bamba, who absolutely blasts one by Hugo Lloris. He baila la Bamba against our defense, and LAFC necesito defensa de nuestros jugadores. Try to make a La Bamba cadence reference to that, but either way, it was a failed attempt. I'm having fun on my own. It's just me, myself, and I, and not even Hello Kitty is around, if you can believe this. And for those that don't know why I'm referencing Hello Kitty, stay tuned and make sure you subscribe to Defenders of the Bank podcast, because you're going to see a lot of Hello Kitty when it comes down to this. Camping, yeah, you're right. Jose Mourinho did mention calling him Sonaldo. I just hadn't seen it on a kid before, so I thought that was pretty darn cool. Now, let's see here. 2-1. Two assists in the game for Zinkernagel, my player to watch. 12 assists on the season to go along with his 10 goals. Zinkernagel would really made the difference for the Chicago Fire, without question. Now, 76, Denny with a shot on frame, saved by Brady. In the 77th minute, we see some craziness as there's an attempt. Lloris makes the save, and then Gutierrez has a shot that hits the post, and that enables LAFC to go on the run. At this point, Sonny on the run makes his way into the box, gets taken down by Carlos Terán, and it looked like it was the case. Possible denial of goal-scoring opportunity. A dog so back and forth. Referee blew the whistle to stop play after some back and forth. Goes to the monitor. Now, one thing that was not audible was the official on his microphone. Nevertheless, a yellow card assessed to Terán, who was visibly pissed off for that, but I don't see why, because as the Coug says, a clear and obvious foul. No doubt about it. Ruben Rios trying to get me off my game, saying Zinkernagel and Snickerdoodle. I could go for a Snickerdoodle right now. I haven't had breakfast, but I have to go work out after this. No drinking for me this morning, defenders. If you've noticed, I didn't place any bets because the last couple of times I placed bets, I lost. I had to beer bong a seltzer. I still have the beer bong right here, and I had to drink a shoey the day before for League's Cup. Now, none of that. Just drinking a little bit of this Aquafina H2. And by the way, the idea of us having to pay as much money as we do for bottled water just goes to show us how silly we are in a lot of the things that we do here in the United States. Anyway, so it's now an opportunity for LAFC to hit the equalizer. Now, many would suspect that because he drew the penalty, it should have been Sonny to take the penalty kick. Maybe. But obviously, he just came into the team, right? Denis been the designated player, not only because of his contract, but also because of the fact that that's just what it is. He's the one that takes those situations. As the season progresses, as Sonny gets some more time under his feet, maybe we'll see him in those scenarios take those. But nevertheless, Denis Bouanga steps 11 meters, 12 yards, whatever unit of measure you like, in front of Chris Brady. Brady trying to intimidate or say something to Denis Bouanga, which is probably the dumbest thing that he did because all he needed to do was spark just a little bit of fire. You like what I did there? Just a little bit of fire under Denis, and Denis is going to make you pay for it. Referee blows the whistle. Denis smashes it upper right, beating Chris Brady, and 2-2 at this point. Denis with the pulverizer, his 14th goal of this season, and he only needs 4 more goals to tie Carlos Vela. He's got 89 in all competitions. Now, I don't say this because I want Denis to eclipse Carlos Vela in the stats columns. On the contrary, I'm just so freaking impressed how quickly Denis has hit these numbers. For those that don't know and are new to LAFC, Carlos Vela is LAFC's all-time leading scorer with 93 goals over the course of 186 games in all competitions. Of course, his assist number is also really freaking good. But Denis has done this. He has now scored 89 goals over the course of 139 games. So to me, that is utterly impressive. Denis, we've said it all season long. If he's not scoring, LAFC has trouble. We've seen some moments of brilliance from the likes of the youngsters, Nathan Ordaz, who was an academy player here in LA, and of course, David Martinez, who we brought over from Venezuela. Both kids very talented, but for the most part, it's been Denis. And now with Sonny on this team, he's going to take a lot of the burden off of Denis' shoulder. At the very least, maybe facilitate to the success of his teammates, drawing in defenders, opening up space, Denis on the left, Ordaz on the right, or whatever variation of it you can possibly see. We would see a Kellen Acosta sighting in the 88th minute. So Kellen, a big part of LAFC's success in 2022. Also, an outstanding human being. You have to go no further than to ask Chris Lafferty, who's a co-host on the show from time to time, about Kellen Acosta's generosity. Heck of a player who would get a few minutes of run against his former club. 11 to be exact, coming on in the 88th minute. We had 9 minutes of stoppage. I mean, what is this, the World Cup? It's insane. 90+3, you saw a nice opportunity from Palencia. To Son, but nothing there. And you can immediately see his quality on the pitch. But anyway, the whistle blows. The game ends 2-2. LAFC had now 10-6-7 record in the regular season with 37 points and sits in 5th place in the Western Conference. By no means our greatest season ever. It's been somewhat of a struggle. As I mentioned at the top of this podcast, still not the worst season that we've had in terms of our level of play in 22 games. We had this when we made it to the finals in 23. We had this in our inaugural season. And so a interesting game to not be able to beat the Chicago Fire on the road. We can debate that in several different ways. We can argue that, well, the Fire suck at home. I could argue that LAFC have sucked on the road. 2 wins, still at 2 wins. We could talk about how the Fire are just barely above the playoff line. I could say how LAFC is, just below the home field advantage line on the play. There's so many ways we could slice or dice it. Fact of the matter is the Fire can score goals and they concede goals. And so that's exactly what they did. They scored a couple of goals and they conceded. I would say this is a pretty good game for LAFC. Exciting if you were a neutral. But what we did see for LAFC from the 60 or so minutes on when Sonny hits the game, and then when you have a couple other substitutions come in, LAFC just looked like a completely different team on the attack. The chemistry between Sonny and Ordaz looked good. Palencia connected with Sonny. That looked pretty good. In time, Denny and Sonny will figure things out on that left side or who runs into the middle. I mean, Sonny's just a very versatile player who can play on any side, but obviously they're going to have to get that figured out to not have players crashing into one another and to create some spacing for opportunities. But all in all, I think I'm excited. I'm optimistic as to what's to come. Defensively, if only we had Aaron Long, poor Aaron Long, out for the rest of the season, just to shore things up on the back line. But, of course, we still have reinforcements in that way. So let's quickly talk about Heung-Min's son. 30 minutes is how much he played. He had an XG of 0.30. Okay, that's fine. Accurate passing, 6 for 10. No chances created. Won a penalty and had a shot on target. In addition to that, 21 touches, 3 in the opposition's box, and a couple of good passes into the final third. As far as ground duels are concerned, 3 for 7 on that attempt, and he drew 2 fouls. In a short period of time with a very short body of work, he was the difference maker. Had he not gotten subbed in for David Martinez at the time that he did, does LAFC have the ability to tie the Fire? And the answer is, I don't know. None of us know, and we'll never know. But the facts are we did tie it, and it was because of him and his pacing. You see the Jets right away. He still has that burst of speed in him. And at his age, obviously not very old, at 33, you can see that he has stuff in the tank. In Major League Soccer, we've seen quite a few things, and players of different abilities, levels, generational talents of the likes of your Beckhams and, of course, your Messis, losing steps coming out here to the United States, jokingly called the Farmers League, but whatever. It is what it is. It's our little thing. And I completely disagree with it still being a Farmers League. Maybe for like the top level of talent abroad, but MLS does develop players and sell them overseas. Look at Alphonso Davies, for example. Vancouver Whitecap found success at Bayern Munich. Just saying. Maybe one example, maybe the only big example, but an example nonetheless. And so Sonny's ability in this game and his talent, very obvious. You wouldn't even have to understand the intricacies of the sport, and you just pay attention to LAFC's new number 7, and you can see what a world of a difference he made in the attack. As far as new number 7s, only 2 players prior to Sonny have worn that. The great Latif Blessing and the not really great Stipe Buke, who's now in Spain playing for Real Valladolid, if I'm not mistaken. So, was he being used, Q Cardi asks in the chat, as a number 9? Oh, the chat gets, because there wasn't anything false about his subs to the box. I mean, I think he's going to be utilized as the number 9 going forward, but he does have that versatility. I guess it all depends on what LAFC wants to do. Oftentimes, they look to want to absorb the other team and go off and devastate them on the counter. But we have seen at times LAFC put their foot on the gas and go out there and fight and really dominate teams. So it's all a matter of what Steve wants to do in terms of tactics. One thing that we could all agree on is LAFC does have another scoring threat, and the likes of Heung-Min Son. So that's the case with LAFC. There's 2 more road games. There's a game against the Revolution. There's a game against FC Dallas. Will people pack into those arenas to see Major League Soccer's newest, biggest, would you say biggest of the season? Yes, I am going to say biggest of the season. Biggest ever? No, but certainly within the top 5. Let's see how he pans out in terms of his contributions. But what is not to be denied that in the short period of time that he has been here, he's put up some numbers in terms of jersey sales. I'm putting this up on the screen for those that are listening. Based on Front Office Sports, Son Heung-Min has led all athletes and merchandise sales across sports since LAFC announced his signing on Wednesday. He's now number 2 in all-time MLS jersey sales after this team switch, behind only Messi. Now, whether or not that is true, I can't tell you for a fact. I do respect Front Office Sports as a media entity, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. So we see Sonny's presence on the pitch. We can see his presence on the outside, on the business side of things. We've even seen people in the chat here say they're new to Major League Soccer and they're tuning in because of his move from Tottenham. So this is a win-win for so many things. For those that are tuning in to Major League Soccer for the first time, I will say, as compared to what you're probably used to, there is an adjustment period. You have to understand that this league has been around since 1996, and they're still trying to figure things out. So many little silly rules that differ from the rest of the world. But for us here, it's ours. For me in particular in Los Angeles, LAFC is my club. Growing up in New York, having spent 4 years living in Germany, I didn't have a major league soccer team because I didn't care about the Metro Stars, and I followed teams in Europe. But now that I'm here and I've spent so much time and I've completely immersed myself into Major League Soccer, and of course with LAFC, I've done almost 500 podcasts here with this one alone. When asked, even taking stadium tours globally, what my favorite club is, I look them in the eye and I say LAFC. And they look at me like, no, really, who's your favorite club? LAFC. Why? Because it's mine. It's mine. I can hop in my car and go down the 110 and get to BMO Stadium and see a game. I haven't missed that many since LAFC had its first game in BMO in April of 2018. Season ticket holder since, podcaster here for the longest time, credentialed via Major League through Major League Soccer for MLS Finals and obviously LAFC these past couple of seasons. This is my favorite club. So for those of you that are new, what I'm saying and I'm asking for is just the patience to learn about it and just appreciate the fact that, trying extremely hard to catch up to the rest of the world, and it'll probably be not even in my lifetime that they do, but it's certainly getting bigger, certainly attracting attention. And I love this silly little league. But more importantly, I love LAFC, and I'm loving what LAFC can possibly do in this future of this season. Steve Cherundolo's final season, of course, a lot of debate, very controversial topic, very polarizing. I'm not going to get into that, but now with the addition of Heung-Min's son, there's a good chance that LAFC could make a nice run in the postseason. Prior to this signing, I wouldn't think that LAFC was long for the playoffs. The goal that I thought would be accomplishable, and still, of course, is top 4, home field advantage for playoffs, maybe a second round exit. In this case, I think the debate is open. Still need to see how the team adapts with the new players. And obviously, we still have another player in that Orion Porteous who still has to make his debut. That's paperwork that needs to get pushed through. Interesting how his paperwork hasn't necessarily been pushed as quickly as Sonny's has, but that's neither here nor there. It's also interesting that he hasn't had a press conference yet. We will soon, eventually. Obviously, he's going to add to our team. He's going to be with us for a little while, as will Sonny. So good things are to come. Ruben Rios, thank you so much. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, a couple of other places that I don't recall. And if you feel so inclined, Scarf needs to update this because it's his job. The defendersofthebank.com website. We have a really cool merch shop with t-shirts and all kinds of other stuff. Got to talk to Dexter about adding some more fun gear. And yeah, that's it, folks. I will not be on the next few pods as on Wednesday, August the 13th, yours truly has his birthday. And my wife, Amanda the Panda, is taking me somewhere. I don't know where. All I know is I have to bring my passport. I'll be gone from Wednesday to Sunday. So it'll be Scarf, maybe Scarf and Lafferty, maybe some iteration of them both. But I'll be out on Wednesday, and I'll see y'all when I get back. And for those into college soccer, make sure you check out UC Riverside. Sonny, you can come, but I think more people would like you to be at LAFC. Camping, I appreciate it. Normally, we've got a couple of people on the show. The banter was what really makes Defenders of the Bank fun. There's only so much chaos that I can create by myself. And maybe I'll do it with a beer bong. Maybe I'll do it with some other little shtick or the multiple props I have here. Like, I don't know, my Michelangelo Funko Pop doll. Either way, the shows get better. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm surprised that I made it 41 minutes with my voice still intact. Defenders, I love y'all. Newbies that are in here, such as Camping, love y'all too. Really appreciate y'all, and we'll see you soon. You were watching Defenders of the Bank, and once I find the exit button, I'll leave you. Yes. Mwah. Philly out.